we're having a conversation this hour on the state of the nation, and there are many things to look into. The president gave it was a state of the nation address, and telling you where you are is actually not where you're going. We're going to be able to open that up and decipher a little bit. And there have been things like, I choose to call it musical chairs, that have been going on in the Senate, where people decided, okay, I don't like the way you've been moving, so you know what? You in that committee, move. Or, we strip you of your powers, as it were, completely. Political dynamics, realignments, and of course the state of the nation. To help us discuss this, Associate Dean at the Daystar School of Law is Dr. Martin Oloo, and he's here with us this morning. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Ndu, and thank you for having me. It's always nice to be back at the Spice.
Asante sana.
Because, we need spices, especially on a Friday.
Yeah. Sindo? So I'm told.
Yes.
It spices up some people's omena.
Absolutely.
But we shall...
Omena's just chilling.
When are we going to call you Prof?
Well, today.
Today, we're calling you Prof, officially.
Whatever you want to call me.
No.
That's a good sign, by the way.
That's all if we speak it into existence.
Yes, speak it into existence.
Voila. Before we get into this conversation, Dennis has taken us to Malawi this week.
Yes.
You get to interpret it for the last time this week.
Yes. The people of Malawi have this proverb. Umbrella cannot stop the rain, but it makes us stand the rain. How would you interpret it?
What he's saying is this, that the idea of taking refuge or the idea of seeking help does not mean there will be no trouble. It means that the reason why you seek help is because there's trouble. That you need the rains to have use for an umbrella. So really, reasons or circumstances create sometimes the resilience that we require for life.
Prof has spoken.
Indeed.
And his name is not Oloo, it's 0100.
01 and 00. Okay, Nairobi.
Okay.
There are people who need to be taken to court. They are here. How do you mess up somebody's name?
In their presence.
In their presence.
Yeah. So
you didn't even have the decency of stabbing him in the back.
I don't even have to go far, and there are two witnesses.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's look at the state of the nation. And then I don't know where we want to start with. If we want to start with the address that the president gave last night, but maybe we should hold that off because...
we'll start there.
Oh, you want to start? Okay, well, let's go with it.
We must to read the mood.
Okay,
So
go.
it appears, Prof, we are saying now we are crowning you as a Prof. Yesterday, the country, as many would have it, many are saying, we were treated to platitudes and bromide, a lot of superficiality in that State of the Nation address. It appears people are highly disappointed, They expected to hear things different. But they had a promise on a promise. And we are living on another promise. So the mood is that the president is not really walking the walk. He says a country cannot be led on guesswork, and that great nations have been created or made out of deliberate involvement of the people. Are you sharing the same opinion of platitudes and bromide, a lot of superficiality and too much talk and less walk?
You see, thank you again for this morning. Let's get it right that there were some very excellent things that the president was saying. And when I talk about excellent, just wait to see what I call excellent. When it comes to rhetorics, when it comes to talking, the president is very good at positioning himself. He's very good at going through things he believes in, and there's no problem. The issue is, what is it that he is talking about, and how in sync is he with the Kenyan nation? So, when you come and talk about Beyond Vision 2030, the first thing anybody expects you to do is to really analyze and give us an evaluation of where we've gone to or we've gotten to because of Vision 2030. Zero. That speech doesn't have any analysis. The second thing, it does not talk about why he and President Uhuru abandoned Vision 2030 immediately after they took over from Kibaki. He does not talk about why in their second term with President Uhuru, they created what they call the big five. Yeah, they brought manufacturing, I don't know what.
Housing.
They had zero delivery on it.
Universal health coverage.
He has not talked about where he has gotten us with his bottom-up economic transformation. That speech doesn't refer to it. Selective amnesia because if you can't talk about why we have been abandoning Vision 2030, why do you think we can now embrace something beyond Vision 2030? What is it in our culture, political culture? What is it in our leadership culture and governance culture that does not make us follow through anything? And what has changed to make us believe that what you are now telling us will happen in 2060? Those are the things that we are looking for. But let's quickly look at what he's saying.
Okay.
He is telling us that the model that he wants us to adopt is the model that got South Korea, that got Singapore in 1970s to where they got to. No problem. He's telling us that the model he wants us to choose is the model of in the 1980s, which got China where it is to today. But I want to give you an example.
Okay.
2018, 2017, we went to South Korea and saw what the Korean Advanced Institute of Science and Technology was doing. Because the South Koreans had gone to MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, had seen what the institute was doing, they borrowed it, and they made it work in Korea. KAIST. That is the engine and the hub for patents and for innovation for LG, for Samsung, and that's where actually industrialization is spanned from in South Korea. They borrowed it, it worked. Now we said we liked the idea.
Yes.
So we borrowed the idea, took a loan, South Korean through Exim Bank, and the EDCF gave us a highly concessional loan, 0.05 to 1% interest rate over 40 years. 20 years down the line, we are still talking about implementing it. Now we recently have created it. Now the institution is in Konza City. There's nobody we have admitted so far. We are going to pay that loan before we even graduate one person. So it does not matter. We can borrow ideas. We can go back to the 80s. We can go back to the 70s. But in our culture, we hardly follow anything through. And why? Because of elite capture, because of corruption, because of incentives. Our incentives for leadership fall flat on accountability, on transparency, and keeping the promise. So the president is following his true footsteps. He's telling us things that he has told us before, and he's promising us that he's not likely to follow them through. But at the end of it all, this meeting is calling on the 12th of August. What will it really do?
To launch this
vision thing so that you tell the Kenyans what you need to do. Now, let's put it in a constitutional perspective. So what is the essence of public participation? When you have gotten people to think through a document, and the people that you have gone for, and let's get it right. Professor Hino, Professor Nyang' Nyong'o are great guys. They have a great history, including the economic recovery strategy paper that Professor Nyang' Nyong'o was able to help us have when he was the cabinet secretary or the minister then for planning in 2000, early 2000. Fine. You are going to them to give you a strategy for 2060, and they're using the lenses of 1970 and 1980. Totally out of sync. So if that is the case, and you want to go to consult Kenyans on that framework, you want now to put people together, you want even to have some academic people come to join this group to talk about, this is not going to work. And we are saying it now, because what we are now doing is just having a conversation. The president wants to have a conversation. He wants to have reason to bring people together.
Or to make people know that he's around.
Yes, he's around.
Yeah.
And therefore to pretend that there's public participation, there's nothing like it. What we have is that he's now trying to find his space to make a case for beyond 2027.
Professor, do they think that Kenyans are so dumb that they would not see through the cracks? Why do I say that? Because if we talk about everything that he mentioned, let's talk about education, right? In education today, capitation is a problem. University funding model, he abandoned what he commissioned through the Presidential Working Party. Now he's saying, we need to go back to help and fix it so that it works, that he will pay for everybody. We're talking about food security in the country. As we speak right now, El Nino is coming. What are we doing around saving that water? What are we doing about going about irrigation other than just waiting for God to give us rain? These are conversations that we ought to be talking about. There's a time in China when they went through the worst drought ever. They put in measures to ensure that their people will never sleep hungry again. We talk about China and their education. Every year, they are graduating over 5 million engineers who then come back and plug into the economy. Look at what China is doing today. What are we doing with our education?
It's good, Dennis, you say that, because one, we are wasting ourselves. Look at the number of doctors out there who have no jobs, the engineers out there who have no jobs. Yet this is a country that is in need of development. So that's one side, that we are producing and not able to absorb because we are not creating enough opportunities for graduates. But more importantly, President Ruto has not been around, has been around. He's not a newcomer to this scene. He's been around as an MP, he's been around as a minister, he's been around as deputy president for 10 years, and now he's the president for the last 4 years. Surely, in this speech, what is he saying, the one thing that he believes he has seen come through? You have mentioned education. He came, he dismantled what was there, he promised us a funding model. He himself has admitted the funding model is not working. Okay. When we told him at that time, he didn't listen. He came, he's found us with NHIF. Yes, it was corrupt, but at least we never used to have 2% of that money disappear in private hands. Now he created the share, money disappears, a system that costs 104 billion that never works. Now tell me, are we better with this, with health than we were with NHIF? Let's do an analysis. On education, we've said it. On agriculture, the first thing we heard of the incentive for agriculture was the fertilizer that had more stones than they had real fertilizer in there. That is supposed to be a basis upon which the people of Rift Valley would vote for this government, would want a government that helps them to improve on agriculture and so on. So let us take an audit and ask, so what is this one thing that has worked? If it's the bottom-up model has worked, what is this one thing that has worked? I stopped thinking that affordable housing is what we need, because I don't even know what is affordable about the housing. So what is it that we have seen so far over the last 15 years of Ruto and now Ruto that we want to take to 2060 and so on? Now, I can't see any, not in that speech. I can only see there are a lot of aspirations. Let me tell you this. I was reading that speech this morning. And the thesis I got out of it, because we're being professorial,
of course,
is that according to the president, the problem with Kenya is lack of vision and lack of institutions. Therefore, he's fixing institutions and he's now creating a vision that beyond Vision 2030, we now need a Vision 2060. That is not the point. That is missing it all. In fact, I would ask, the plans we have had, session of paper number 5 of 1960. The session of paper number 3, the one that we did that brought privatization through Robert Ouko, session paper of 1965, Tomboy associated with it and so on. We have had blueprints. That's not our problem. The problem is, where is the evidence? When Kenyatta took over this government, the first Kenyatta, he said, our problem was to fight ignorance, disease and poverty. Today, Kenyans are poor. They're poorer. The other day, the World Bank was saying that to this year alone, the over 2.5 million Kenyans will have gone below a poverty line by the end of this year. Health is not there. Education is in shambles. So are we really lacking a vision? No. Do we need another vision beyond 2030? No, we did not. We never implemented Vision 2030. Did you know, Ndu, that at some point we had said in this country that water to everybody by the year? Who can remember? 2000. Yes. By the year 2000.
Yes.
2000 arrived, no water. There was even a time where he created a Poverty Eradication Commission. He said we must eradicate poverty. Now I've asked you, now I ask you here, show me one person whose poverty was eradicated because of that commission. So the thing is that we can be aspirational.
Yeah.
We can come and plan and talk about the plans. The truth of the matter is that what Kenyans want is evidence of how their lives change. And importantly, they want evidence that the government is creating the mechanism that allows them to do business, allows them to flourish, to thrive, and to be themselves.
But why keep coming back? This is the question.
Yeah.
Because if you were alive, I mean, literally, blood thumping, heart beating, brain processing human being, and maybe that's where the selective amnesia comes in. You would know that some of these things you had said to people before and that you have not been able to do them. If you just look at his entire manifesto, the Kenya Kwanzaa administration's manifesto was the plan. It was the plan. And this is what they intended to do. And it is very clear that a lot of those things did not happen. So if for some reason you can park that, Nairobi, 4 months ago, they told us that with 80 billion shillings and with CS Mudavadi at the center of it all, they were going to transform Nairobi. They were going to clean up the garbage. They were going to put up lights. They were going to make Nairobi River clean again. No surprise that last night he mentioned Nairobi River again. So I'm left to, and we've not seen, I don't know if any of that 80 billion has been spent or where it came from, or if Nairobi has started the process of transformation. But all of these things are words that people hang on to. So from a social perspective, social now, not governmental or leadership, from a social perspective, why would you do that to people? Keep them on tenterhooks all the time. Because at some point, people are going to believe you. And when I say believe you, I mean believe that you are lying to them. So purely from a social perspective, why would you want to do that over and over and over again?
You know, if there was a representation that President Ruto had done very well in positioning himself, particularly in his campaigning leading up to his presidency, was the kind of intellectuals that he was able to assemble. I'm talking about David Ndii, somebody with known accolades on economics. I'm talking about Professor Njuguna, the first the cabinet secretary for finance.
Who spoke yesterday, interestingly.
I'm talking about a number of professionals. And I'm also talking about the ability that the president had to go across the regions and create plans, the county level plans, and bring this up into the manifesto. A good piece of work. Now, the people that trusted and believed in him are telling us, man, we are disappointed. Now, if Professor Njuguna, a very well-known economist, is now telling us, look, it did not work. Now, he is going to pick Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, and a great mind, and he's telling us now, Anyang' Nyong'o and he, people have been around the block for so long. Okay, show us. Of course, Anyang has a track record in Kisumu. He has transformed it a bit. Fine. What do we have? How can we trust that he will now have a national platform around which he can even implement some of the ideas he's coming through? If what we are hearing from Professor Njuguna Ndung'u is anything to go by, this is as per of the moment. We are now the president is finding reason to bring a country around an issue and keep some people busy. But I can assure you by December, he'll have stopped talking about this 2060. Because right now he's preoccupied on how to dismantle the opposition, because he has said the opposition don't have an agenda. So he wants to create an agenda. The problem is, the way he's creating it is similar to what he has done before. If he had done this with a bit of bottom-up analysis and linking up his time in Uhuruto government, I would have believed him. But to come and tell us all of a sudden that he has come to his Damascus moment, that he's now transforming from Saul to Paul, because now he can see that what we need is beyond Vision 2030. Why didn't he start with Vision 2030 in the first place? Why does he want to make us believe that now Vision 2060 is what we want? How will we be convinced?
I mean, Prof, you look at some of the things that were mentioned, because I wrote them down. There is a question of patriotism that he talked about. That when you talk about patriotism and social justice, that it is not only something that the government does, but the people have to be included and purchase it. When you think about visions and how they are created, Prof, you look at it on the engine behind this vision is the people of Kenya. It is the people of Kenya who will give you the resource, their time, their taxes to push that vision and bring it into fruition. All the government does is come up with a policy that then it's the people to implement. But how do you talk about patriotism and the rule of law where through your government, Kenyans have been killed, where food security, where education, where health are things that do not exist? When you talk about patriotism, I will sit and ask myself a question, just how patriotic are you, Mr. President, to the country and to the constitution that you sought to protect when every other thing you've done goes against, remove that patriotism from you? Do you think that Kenyans today have bought this idea of vision 2030 if bottom-up economic transformation agenda failed?
And you see, this is why I was saying that you start by questioning what happened to the pillars that Vision 2030 erected around economic, around social, and around development? What happened to those pillars? If you are not telling us what happened to those pillars, you are not helping us. But more importantly, to answer what you are saying, is that the biggest policy framework, the biggest vision that Kenyans have given themselves is not Vision 2030. It is the Constitution of Kenya 2010.
Yes.
All those things he's talking about are in the Constitution. The problem is, why is he not implementing them the way they are? People of Kenya are sovereign. Why does he think that he can teach us to be patriotic and that we will not be patriotic ourselves? So let's start from saying, accept that Kenyans own this country. They are the sovereign of this country. They will elect and disappoint. They'll appoint and disappoint others. And that is what they are. So you are not going to build patriotism from where you're sitting as a president in this country. You know, the problem we're having is that the president has the Constitution of Kenya 2010 and he's looking to dictatorships of Singapore, even South Korea. Some of those examples he's looking at were not developed because of democracy. They were developed because of dictatorships. He thinks he can go back to that model of what you call a developmental state, that is state sits and drives development. It can work, but one thing that we need to be agreed about in this country, there are two things that you can't run away from. The level of democracy in this country has expanded, and the issue of devolution is here. So you have 47 units to contend with, and you have spaces, democratic spaces to contend with. To drive an agenda from top down is difficult. And remember, he is now not talking about top down, but what he's proposing is top down. But remember, he came on the basis of bottom up.
Yes.
So why don't we start from there? Where did we get to with bottom up? And why do we want now to drive a top down
agenda?
This agenda you want to start on 12th of August, I want to tell you, is top down.
Okay. Trying to make sense of a lot of what's going on right now. If there is something to be made sense of, Joe?
Yeah, Prof, it sounds like finally, the president has arrived in to 2010 when the country has a new constitution. Because it seems like yesterday he made all these constitutional references. This constitution, it provides. So we welcome him to the new constitution. Unfortunately, he's late on time because we are 1 year, 1 week away from voting again. And if going by what he said, is anything to consider, in my opinion, he sounded detached from the realities that we are living in today as Kenyans. And the pain points or the situations that we need addressed, the challenges that the country is facing, are not things that were not envisioned within the 2030 that he has suspended. Are not things that were not envisioned in the 2010 constitution that he has suspended for 4 years. But yet he comes out and still wants to contend for presidency. What kind of a danger would Kenyans be walking into? Should we have an extension of this regime for another 5 years given the economic crisis, the failing healthcare system, the degraded education system, the rule of law being suspended, our security systems being, in one or the other compromised. I mean, there are a lot of pain points that Kenyans are resolved to saying Ruto must go and he must be a one-term president. But in the unfortunate event, in my opinion, that we have an extension of this regime for another 5 years, we said Kenyans are poorer than they were before, 2013, if you look at the poverty index, among other parameters. So what kind of a lifestyle should Kenyans expect should they decide to have an extension of this regime?
Well, maybe, let me say this, and let's give the president a bit of credit, that he has now realized that actually the Constitution of Kenya 2010 that he opposed is actually good. It has some provisions there. The only thing that we want to remind him is that some of those provisions are self-executing. I mean, you don't have to tell us, to remind us that we are sovereign. We are, because we have already said so in the preamble and in Article 1 of the Constitution. So having realized that, again, he does not need to promise us what we have already enacted for ourselves. We have said this is how we shall govern ourselves. We have talked about Article 43, which gives us the basis of our development rights and so on. Now, those things we have already given ourselves as of right under the Constitution. So you don't need to come and promise us those things. So now, having said that, he has now arrived in this 2010 Constitution and is now appreciating it. Now we want to help him to appreciate that the Constitution is self-executing. Some things you don't even need to do anything about it. They just need to be operationalized. What we want to remind ourselves is that we cannot dismember or we cannot suspend the rule of law, because again, the rule of law is self-executing. I mean, if I do anything wrong, I deserve to be given a fair day in court and I need to be processed. So I'm not saying I should be charged, but give me a fair hearing. Those are the rule of law. Let's go by the law. If the Constitution says we have 3 arms of government, it means the legislature has to respect the judiciary has to respect the executive, but in it they must check on each other. So when the judiciary is saying this is unconstitutional, it's not that they have an issue with Ruto. No, it's not that they have issues with the Parliament. No. Of course, we are also telling the judiciary, and this is part of the war we are having with the judiciary, is that we cannot be blowing hot and cold on certain things. Especially there are certain doctrines that we have agreed on that we cannot backslide on. And when we talk about the rule of law and we talk about the people's role and we talk about restraining or holding government to account, those issues cannot be watered down. So again, we have this tension that must keep on coming at play. The executive has to be checked, the legislature has to legislate, but the judiciary has to interpret and has to bring us to order. That's why we need to come down to the issue of judicial review and other mechanisms that we have to ensure that administrative actions are within the law. So, yes, the issue about what you are asking, should Kenyans have Ruto back? Let them be ready. If it has not been good for 4 years, for 5 years, it will be worse in his last years. And I can tell you, when he comes back after 2027, the first thing he'll do is to assault the Constitution and want to change it so that with this vision 2060 he's talking about, he's soon going to say that, I'm the only one who is available to take you to 2060. Which the staff of dictators. They think that they are the only ones who can run anything. This country is capable of running itself. And that's why, even as we did in 2002, it is not that Kibaki was the best person. Even in 2027, we are not going to look for the best person. We're just going to look for somebody who can listen, who can preside over affairs of this nation in such a way that we, the individuals, can thrive and flourish. Not people who are going to think that they have solutions for us. I mean, the problem with the current government is thinks that it has solutions for everything, including what I'll eat in my house and how I should run my house. No, let people be free. Let's give them choices, including Shah and others. At the end of the day, we just need to create platforms for people to enjoy health, and particularly to make it possible for those who cannot afford to medical services to actually afford them. And that's what countries like India do. They have everything for everybody. You want to go to a high-end hospital, you go. But generally, if a poor person is unwell and they need service, they have good quality services next door. And that's what we want for this country.
Prof. You know, many have said that the vision as was delivered yesterday, or yet to be launched, right, is really not a vision but a campaign strategy for 2027, where everybody then starts talking about this vision and how we will counter it. One asks the question, where is the sincerity from where the president was standing, because they can't see it.
But that's the point, that he's on a campaign trail. What he's asking for is bringing in Anyang and others is to tell us that, this broad government thing is working, and going to 2027, I need you guys to come and work with me so that we can realize this 2060. Those who are coming now under the promises will be back here telling us the same things we are now telling them, that they'll be back here maybe a year or so later if they get that to that level, and they'll be saying, why? We did not know. We thought. We believed. The truth is, there isn't much in that speech that has not been said before, that is not in the Constitution. The problem is that we have not been used to promises being fulfilled. And so here is another promise, and we can wait and wait, like the French play saying, waiting for Godot.
Okay, so it's interesting that if you look around the world and some of these countries that have been used as benchmarks over time, one of the things that they did, and it can actually find a similar thread, and that there are still people within those countries who are serving jail times today. South Korea, the same Singapore that everybody talks about. There are people who jailed presidents. I'm just saying. One of the things that they did was deal unequivocally with corruption, and that they knew that they needed to do that in order to wipe the slate clean. Now, if you're going to emulate, you don't emulate in part for an achievement, you emulate in full. Why wouldn't we then hear, if it was clear that this is the direction in which things are going, why wouldn't you hear anything about dealing with corruption?
Let's be serious. Okay. Let's be serious, Ndu and my friends here.
Yes.
This president needs to be judged according to his record. He has never told you anywhere that he's going to deal with corruption. Where? Not in his bottom-up manifesto. Where did he say that? Where? Never. He has never said anything about corruption. So if you want him to deal with corruption, you are telling him to do what he has not promised to do.
But he wants to be like these nations.
No.
Come on, Prof. He wants to. He says Kenya is on the path towards economic development, and has all the time reference these nations. But it's like you're saying you want to bake an upside down pineapple cake.
Let me ask you.
Don't you have to put in the ingredients to get the cake out? You have to do what people did. That's why people write recipes.
Of those countries, which one has built its health services on a private platform?
None.
Of those countries, which one has created the National Infrastructure Fund on a private platform?
None.
Of those countries, which one of it has privatized the state?
None.
So please,
I know one.
Let's not be serious about. You see, those are, like when he tells you Singapore and we say it's a metaphor, it's not really a direction. We are simply telling you it's good to give people hope, but continue to do the things that will take them there.
Yeah.
So let's be serious on this one. He has never said he'll fight corruption.
Okay.
He is not about to fight it, and therefore let's not judge him on that account.
Now, Prof, I agree with you. Hope is not a strategy. We can create metaphors, we can create slogans, we can create. We are going into the electioneering process, so we are going to hear a lot of things. But indeed, if you're not able to dot the I's and cross the T's, the problem persists. Today, we are in a debt crisis. Today, our health system...
This speech of his does not talk about debt crisis.
Yeah, correct.
You cannot do this kind of development when you are not talking about what you're going to do about debt.
Precisely.
Yeah, so he has no problem with that.
So... Now, I want us to shift gears and look at it differently, because the president, the outgoing president, William Ruto, did not elect himself. Kenyans did.
Yes.
And we respect the rule of law. So, I want us to now look at the necessity of the voter acknowledging that they will be the drivers of this process, whether it is to the Singapore, whether it is to the junction of 2030 that branches off to 2060, the next regime that comes into office in a record 53 weeks will be driven by Kenyans. Because Kenyans will vote. And the votes that will matter will be the cast vote. we may have millions of registered voters, but last time that 33% thereabout did not come out to vote. So 63 voted, and William Ruto got 33%. And he was pronounced as the president, the winner. So are the people from where you sit, from your interactions across the divide, are the people feeling the pain enough to acknowledge that actually they're the ones who hire and fire a president? They're the ones who can decide which vision they want for this country. We are the ones who are going to agree to disagree, that much as we like you, Professor 0100, as a person,
0100,
you do not embody what the country needs right now. Therefore, we are not going to vote for you. We are going to vote for person B. Because he's the one who totally understands the mandate we want to offer for at least the next 5 years. Are Kenyans woke to that reality now?
I think Kenyans are very much awake. And if you want to know what's happening or how Kenyans are doing this, look at what's happening around one Edwin Sifuna. At the beginning of this year, where was Sifuna's name anywhere on the list of potential presidential candidates? So what is that is pushing the groundswell around Sifuna? I think that is the message that Kenyans are saying, that we can propel anyone, including Dennis here or yourself, as long as that is our choice. You say he has no money, we are going to give him money to campaign. Some people are offering him big money, but the other day you saw Mambogas and whatnot coming out with their money to say, we will put our money on this young man. He's a young man. People can recognize him as somebody who is ordinary Kenyan. Some have laughed even at his house. But you see, that is those who have stolen. I mean, when you see somebody like Junet telling him that you got money, why did you go and build a house? What kind of ethic and mentality is that? That is the wrong messaging. And he's telling us he wants to give us a deputy president so that they do what? They want to continue the things that we have issues with. So the point for me is that Kenyans have come around. Who knew that President Ruto would be facing the kind of challenges he's facing now? I mean, he came with a very strong push from... remember, he was campaigning throughout the second term, and he was gaining. And he gained. And for sure, he gained. From where he started and where he ended, he made a lot of progress. No doubt about it. But look at how he has wasted that public confidence in him over the last 4 years. Look at how he has abandoned promise after promise. Look at how even the Mamboga that he had promised has since seen through. I know there's nothing as easy or as difficult as promising a hungry person that you'll get them food. Because when they are hungry, they'll remember. The reason why they are hungry is because you promised them food and they are not getting it anymore. So for me, we have a situation where Kenyans have turned around. People are no longer being hoodwinked. They're no longer being told about a wheelbarrow. In fact, all they are saying is that we don't want this government and we will deal with it after. Whatever we'll do, we'll say after we've done away with it. They are not even waiting for a promise. And if I was to advise Ifuna, just continue on your line. Don't even change your narrative. The people asking you to tell them what your policy is. Your policy is what they tell you to tell us. So let any of these people in opposition just walk around. And I think people are coming around. When you look at everybody in the opposition right now, there's a lot of support that they're getting, and we are likely to have a better conversation. Whoever will take this country will face Kenyans who are enlightened. Whether it's the president and his team that will be in opposition, they are enlightened enough to know why Kenyans will have booted them out. So whoever is in power must be ready for that kind of opposition. And if it's this opposition that's going to take over, then they should be ready to deal. Everybody should be able to deal with the issues that are on the table. So for me, Kenyans are ready. They are willing. They are more enlightened. And they know that they have the power. Forget about what Oburu is asking for. It's the Kenyans who have the power. Power is not going to be given by Kenya Kwanza. No. It's Kenyans that are going to give whoever comes into power that power.
On the flip side, Prof, with this vision that then has been well articulated is out there, what would it have taken for Kenyans to consume that vision and say this is where we want to go? We would sit and look at how Kenyans then are apprehensive of that because of the history that they've lived with the governments before, the history that they're living with. Because even here, there's one who's asking, we are always talking about a vision that is yet to be implemented, yet we never talk about today. When will we live in the present and say, based off Vision 2030, we are enjoying the fruits of implementation today, that when Vision 2060 is coming, then we can say we have trust that we will end up there?
The one thing that Kenyans are looking for is not a government that promises them, a government that wants to do things for them. No. One thing Kenyans learned during Kibaki's time is they want there's a government that facilitates, creates equal opportunities, puts in place infrastructure and systems that enable them to do things. I don't want anybody to do anything for me, not the government. But I want to be able to go and do a business and make some money of it because I know Dennis will buy, or Ndo here will buy, or my friend here will buy. So if I know that, that's what I need. If I know that I can wake up and my goods can find their way to the market, and I can find a willing buyer there, and I can sell, and I can bank my money and pay minimum tax. Nobody is saying no to tax, but people are saying no to taxes that are so punitive that they are putting them out of business. Most businesses are closing because the tax regime is too punitive. So people want spaces. They are ready to pay taxes, but they also want a government that facilitates them, enables them to do business, and encourages them to do business. Not one that crowds them out. Because you see, this government is mopping out money, borrowing all over, so people are not having access to finances in the private sector to be able to borrow and improve their income. Now, the cooperatives that are working, government wants to go in there and start saying, oh, we want you to help you to manage your money. This is people's money. They're saving. They're my savings in a cooperative. How do you want to manage it for me? I will manage how I elect the people who manage this fund for me. I know it's my share. I'll borrow against it. So why does government want it straight across even the cooperatives?
What I hear you say, what I hear you, Prof, say is pretty much that the people will tell you exactly what they want. The people will tell you about your performance. All you need to do is listen, watch. The people will speak.
Absolutely. That's what we are doing here. So if anybody cares, this is what the people want. They want to be able to express themselves. They want to be able to be believed. And they also want you to convince them that you are up to something good. I mean, people are not bad. If you tell them something and you go ahead and do it, they'll know you've done it and they'll associate it with you. Otherwise, they are willing and ready to change leadership today, to change government today. And by the way, this discussion is not just about the top. This discussion is going to be true about MCAs. This discussion is going to be true about members of parliament and county governors and so on. There are people who are going to go home on account of non-performance, on account of not delivering on promises. And there are many.
Now, Prof, perhaps as we come to the top of the hour, ironically, we are being compared to the Asian tigers. You know, that's the hope and the vision we are being sold. But today, the reality is, in my opinion, that our tax regime is equivalent to that of France. You look at the money the French give to the government, it is in the around of 60%, which is almost the same for us here as Kenyans. Now, compare, because we need to compare the realities of the day, not the visions of the future. Compare the quality of the life of the French people, the money they give to government, the public policy, the public goods they receive. I mean, it is like heaven and earth when you compare that with us as Kenyans. Why is it that even as other people front themselves as presidential candidates, they are not able to relate that particular reality? Because I think that is the main pain point, the tax injustice that we are having today. All this, you know, like I don't hear that from Kalonzo Musyoka. I've not heard that from Sifuna. I've not heard that from Maraga and all these other people. The only person who speaks about the economic situation is Jimmy Wanjigi. He says if we continue paying the taxes we pay, we should be able to live like the French are living, the quality of life, the social services and all those goods. But how is it we are not able to relate that today in this campaigning season and start isolating people and saying, my friend, you are detached from the reality of our world. This is the direction we ought to be going.
You know, I have said it, and I want to repeat it quietly, that we have everything that we need to be able to build equity, to build justice, to build accountability, and so on, in the name of 2010 Constitution. Nobody needs to promise us.
Right.
We have said everything we want to say there. All we want is an implementer. And that's why I like it when a candidate tells me, look, all I need to do is to make sure that the Constitution is followed. Because if it is followed, it will ensure fairness and so on. The last thing you want to do is somebody who thinks they have a better solution than what Kenyans themselves gave themselves, which is the 2010 Constitution.
Right.
It talks about human rights there. It talks about democracy there. It talks about governance. All our aspirations are there. It talks about how public service should be managed. It talks about how taxation should be managed. It's all there. So nobody should come and promise us anything. What Jimmy Wanjigi is saying, which is true, and perhaps which is really, really at the heart of everything, is how did we end up with that 13 trillion debt? Where did this money go to? What did it do? Now, that's a management, it's a governance, it's an ethical, it's a legal question. Are we paying for debts that we don't know, what he calls odious debts? Are we complicating our lives by simply allowing people? And by the way, there are many issues. You know, there's a reason, for example, why power in this country is not cheap, and these independent producers of whatever, they are funny contracts we've entered into, which if we continue that way, we can only continue having our cost of electricity. Now, you can bite that bullet and say we shall pay for whatever it means, but let's liberalize ourselves, let's liberate ourselves from that kind of. So we need hard decisions. Jimmy may be saying the right things, but we need more than the talking the right things to do what is necessary, which is, what is it that we shall do to bring us back to track? Or else we have 13 trillion debt which we must pay, and we must pay through taxes. If we don't address how we shall pay that, you can talk about sovereign fund for all we care, you can talk about infrastructure fund for all we care, but how do you ensure that you reduce that debt and that you release money for development? Because right now, out of 100 that we have, over 60, 70 is going to debt.
And that's the reality of the situation. And I just had a sunken feeling as we talk about these things that perhaps holding the country to this rapt attention last night was for nothing.
You know, the president has to be relevant.
Okay.
He has to.
So it's political? It's possibly political?
Once in a while, he has to come and inspire the nation. And what happens, whether he inspires the nation or not, is up to us to judge.
It's up to you whether you're inspired.
He came with a national address. And you know, some of his opponents had started saying earlier, he's coming. Anakuja kutuahidi. Which, again, he seems to be predictable about.
Right.
What somebody said happens to be what he did. Yeah. So there is also a truth in it that I think what the president needs is a reset button. He needs to take a retreat. Maybe he needs to take a holiday.
No. There's no money. No. Come on.
No.
It's a little bit too much.
Which work? He needs to go and think about himself and ask whether he still wants to run in 2027 or he wants to, or not. Because he might say, I've done it. These people have not appreciated. I'm going back to my village.
It's possible.
He can say that. So, I mean, at any point, every human being needs to retreat to themselves and ask, am I still relevant? Talk to your God and ask God, am I still
relevant here?
Useful in your kingdom?
Indeed.
If God tells you no, he can tell you no in very many ways.
And let's leave that hanging. Professor Martin Oloo, thank you for joining us this morning.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.